one. Now our mama be so, we no get another one. Only me to know. Now our mama be so, we no get another one. Now our mama be so, we no get another one. Now our mama be so, we no get another one. Only me to know.
Celebrating Africa, come join in the spree. Tune in and vibe, feel the beats. Friday hangout, where the stories unfold. We'll dive deep, let the truth be told. From laughter to lessons, we learn and we play. Change media, we light up your Friday. Join in and vibe, let's make a fuss. On Ginger Media, it's just us. Join the hangout, let's make a fuss. On Ginger Media, it's just us. It's just us. Join the hangout, let's make a fuss. On Ginger Media, it's just
Good evening, everyone. May I know where you are watching me from this evening? We will be looking at the controversy over the request by senators to recognize late Professor Humphrey Nwosu, the man who made sure that June 12 became what today are claimed known as the freest election in the Nigerian history. Thank you very much for joining me. I am still Mazes, okay? Where are you joining me from? Recall, this is our Friday Hangout, and in our Friday Hangout, we make sure that we have a glass or a bottle of water. Because we treat serious national and continental issues on our Friday Hangout with a dose of humor. On this note, we would start from the beginning. In the words of former President of South Africa, Jacob Zuma, I would say, in the beginning. So we are beginning from the beginning. We are beginning from the beginning, right? So quickly, let's get the basis of our conversation this evening is going to be based on the conversation by the Arise crew between OG, Ayo, and Ruben Abati. I had wanted to do this yesterday, but I had some other pressing issues, hence I didn't do it. But this evening, I now have the honor and privilege to have it done. Right. So let's start, like I said.
Good morning to you, viewers. Let's begin what's trending. Senators from the Southeast Caucus walked out of the chamber on Thursday after the Senate rejected for the second time a motion to immortalize the late Humphrey Nwosu, former chairman of the National Electoral Commission. The lawmakers urged President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to honor Nwosu's legacy in a show of protest. The Southeast senators, led by Ehinaya Abaribe, stormed out of the chamber to address the press. Abaribe told journalists that the caucus was displeased with the Senate's decision to reject the motion. Let's take a look.
If there was no election, there would have been any June 12. Don't forget that there was a court order that was done by Justice Ikweme to stop the election, and he defied that court order and pushed back and made sure that an election held. If that election was not conducted, you won't be talking of results, and there will be no June 12. So as far as we are concerned, Prof Nwosu deserves this honor. Thank you.
While the lawmakers who rejected the motion to immortalize the late Humphrey Nwosu debated passionately on the motion on the floor of the Senate, Solomon Adiola, the lawmaker representing Ogun West, said the late Humphrey Nwosu failed to salvage Nigeria's democracy during the annulled election. Adiola claimed that he lost his brother due to the event of June 12 and insisted that Nwosu did not deserve recognition. Let's take a
Before we take the position by Adiola, it's quite, I would say, may the soul of his younger brother rest in peace. I also had individuals who were running away from Lagos in the infamous Osa Abiola, lost their lives. And that grudges is what one does still not hold. I'm not saying he shouldn't, mourn his loss, but to blame it on a professor who staked his integrity and his life and actually defiled the military in order to conduct that election, makes me question some of these things. And in as much as some people are now beginning to put ethnic coloration to it, that is it because he is from the southeast? I do not know. But he beggars believe, and he begs the question. If people like the former head of states, Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, who wrecked in billions weeks ago in the book that he wrote, and the same man that annulled the June 12, but the individual who made sure that the June 12 held, even when he was told to stop, he went ahead and ensured that we had a credible election. It was free, it was fair, it was credible. However, the election was not completed because he is not the CNC, he does not command the army in order to make that, the final part happen. Now, to come many years later, to now begin to cast aspersion on the man himself, the reason why we're going to do it, we are doing this evening, is actually to begin to review all the documentary evidence. And, the more I think about it, the more I think that if everyone is forgiven, the one that really shook me very much was the statement made by the former governor of Edo State, Adams Oshomola. We will get to that, but let's continue and hear Senator Adiola's view.
Take a look.
As a result of the action and inaction of Professor Humphrey Nwosu, I lost my immediate junior brother. He died right behind me for him refusing to do or carry out his duty as INEC chairman.
Again, I think, sir, I don't know how to say this, but, I honestly feel sad for your loss. Us also, we lost people in that madness. But it will not be nice to watch you stand there and try to rubbish everything the great man achieved in the midst of all threats that he had to his life.
Mr. President, many of my colleagues have stood up here and said he conducted the free and fairest election. There are three different meanings and three different interpretations that we should look at: conducting election, releasing results, and announcing results. Yes, he conducted the results, the election. Yes, school of thought said he releases all the results. But you and I know releasing results is not the same thing as announcing results. He failed at the critical moment.
Oga, with all due respect, let me turn the table. You sat there in the Senate where you guys argue with your rule book, saying that Natasha should not be heard because the rule book says XYZ. But when it gets to a man who conducted the election, released the result, called the result, he, according to him, I will show you, a guy, in case if you haven't, and go and read his book. And he said he was waiting for Taraba. He was waiting. There was no internet then. It couldn't be sent anyhow. It was moto. It was vehicle. He was waiting for Taraba to come in. And if your office, if your everything, if you basically said no, you are no longer allowed to go carry ahead with the election, what would you do? Don't just stand there and act as if you are the James Bond, that if it were you, you're going to do otherwise. He has gone ahead and did beyond what his mandate as the then NEDECO chairman was.
When he's supposed to salvage this democracy, Professor Humphrey Nwosu, with due respect to him, because it's now late, does not deserve to be immortalized as one of the very few Nigerians that have done the right thing.
Well, Senator,
don't worry, at the appropriate time, we would also see those of you that we will clamor to remove honorable from your names, and also probably to remove that, Senate appendages to your names when you leave the Senate, because some of you are performing abysmally low, that you deserve not to have such appendages.
Adam Soshomole also rejected the motion to immortalize Humphrey Nwosu. He argued that Nwosu and the then military head of state, Ibrahim Babangida, deceived Nigerians by conducting the June 12th election, only for it to be annulled.
Nigerians were really in pain because nobody is able to quote where Professor Nwosu announced the results. It is his failure to announce the result, whether under threat of or other whatever forces that prevented him from so doing, that Nigerians were unable to say.
Now look at the one who is talking. I would say the man with Viagra mouth. You now are the one blaming Nwosu for not announcing the result. This is the man who said that somebody came to him and told him that Nigerian retired army generals were the ones mining gold in Zamfara in some of the northern states. Mr. Oshomole, I put it to you that you are a coward by not naming the names of those who are mining the gold, because those names were given to you. You are a disgrace to the Senate if you could not name those names. If I take your logic, that's what it is. Because somebody gave you the information, you should have been in the better position in order to restore Nigeria and restore the dignity of them believing in the Senate. Maybe it would have been right for you to make those announcements. I mean, apply the logic here.
That he was declared the winner. In fact, I was active in that struggle. If Professor Nwosu had the courage, I emphasize courage as is being suggested here, to announce the winner and damn the consequences. After all, he who is not ready to die for something will end up dying for nothing. I'm on record.
Adam Soshomole, why are you not ready to die for Nigeria by calling the names of those military generals that mine Nigerian gold? You know them, Adam Soshomole. But you expect Professor Humphrey Nwosu to have announced the entire result even when he was told to cease. Logic. Why is logic failing you guys?
They are saying that Professor Nwosu and President Babangida fooled 18 million Nigerians that voted. Nwosu is not on record before his death as admitting that before I die, let me confess that there was a winner.
No, sorry. I think this is utter nonsense. At this point, I would say it is utter nonsense. If you are incapable of reading, I don't know how. You can't just come online and just blab nonsense. Utter nonsense. Sorry, Senator. You just basically spoke nonsense. It is on record. A man wrote a book, put the result in that book. The same result that he put in that book is the same result that Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida put in his own book. A man in New York granted, during the one of the launch of his book, granted an interview. Omoyele Sowore, thank to Omoyele Sowore, accosted him, accused him in the public. Calmly, he explained to Sowore what happened. Have you not seen that video? I'll play it for you this night. Come. This is unfair.
Well, Adamso Shomole here saying that the late Humphrey Nwosu was not ready to die for Nigeria, and therefore, he doesn't consider him a hero. Well, the senators at that time, that walked out, the senators, the Southeast senators, had urged President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to ensure that he immortalizes who we described yesterday on this table, Ayo, as a hero of democracy. But before I come to you guys, I'd like to play this clip. Here is a late Professor Nwosu in this viral video where he mentioned several names of those he said were involved in the schemes that led to the annulment of the June 12th election. Let's take a look.
There was someone at the level of the National Defense, Security and Defense Council,
headed by Babangida.
Babangida and Abacha was prominent. I reported, well, sir, the law that allowed us to conclude this election made no provision for this technical body, for your committee. You should allow us to conclude the result with that of Taraba and announce it, or you call in Abiola and negotiate with him. He shouted on me, who are you to tell us what to do? You are not a member of National Defense and Security Council. You are not. The council and the court decided you should not conduct election. You went ahead and conducted the election, that it was illegal. You will recall, throughout Abacha's regime, his Minister for Information regarded our election as illegal.
Now, wait for 1 minute. Adamso Shomole, the man with Viagra mouth, appears suddenly to have forgotten that even the man he is accusing of not doing the right thing went against the military to even conduct the election and ensure that the right winner was recognized. But hey, what are we? We are a nation that want to always applaud and recognize illegalities. Those who sold out Abiola are being recognized with national honor. It's a sad one.
They're saying at that time, the administration had regarded that election as illegal throughout the tenure of Abacha at the time as well. I mean, Eina Abaribe has charged President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to actually do the right thing by this man, who will be buried, I believe, on Saturday this weekend in Anambra State.
Well, I think the burial had already started today. Anambra State now does one-day burial. Now, I think this challenge, I'd already posted this challenge in my view in the Anambra Elite Forum, where also we are, I belong, and all the government people belong to that. This morning, I made it very clear. And I said in Igbo, Onye ajụla ajụ aha ajụ onwe ya. Ọ bụrụ na Nigerians na ha ma recognize Humphrey Nwosu, Governor Soludo, and the other Southeast governors, then you have to do something. Recognize him. Yeah. Or maybe we would look at one institution that will have to name after him. Or see all the INEC offices, rename him after him. If they say they will not rename the INEC office HQ in Abuja after him. But I know that even if it's not done today, it will be done tomorrow. What we have now are nothing but rubber stampers. So we thought during the time of Senate President Lawal that was going to be the biggest rubber stamper we would ever had. We didn't know that was rubber stamper 1.0. Now we are in rubber stamping Senate 2.0.
And he said that this man led the freest and fairest election in Nigeria's history, and he's wondering why such a man has not been recognized by the federal government of Nigeria. Dr. Abati, over to you.
Okay, we discussed this subject yesterday,
yes.
But I think it's come up afresh because Senator Inyinaya Baribe now went back and represented, that motion. Now, there were 15 senators, all the senators from the Southeast, also supported by Senator Abamoro, Senator Adamu Aliero, Senator Yahaya Abdullahi, both from Kebbi now, and Senator Ned Nwoko, and then, of course, there was a voice vote. At that voice vote, of course, we were also told that the thing was shouted down, upon which the lawmakers, worked out to have a press conference. Now, this is why we're saying there should be e-voting, so that we will know who voted what. All these, they are magical voice votes that the presiding officer can just decide. We don't know whether they even conduct a hearing test, for some of these people who conduct government meetings. But in Parliament, if, there is proper e-voting, we will have definite outcome. That's number one. Number two, some of the respondents said, on the floor of the Senate. Let me start with Senator Adams Oshiomhole. Senator Adams Oshiomhole was saying that at no time did Professor Nwosu declare that Abiola actually won that election. You've shown the video.
That is false. Beyond even what you guys showed, I will show more. Let him finish.
Which showed his mind at that time. Now, in the book, I mentioned his book yesterday, Laying the Foundation, my personal account of the June 12, 1993 presidential election. That book was published in 2008, 474 pages. And I believe it's still in circulation. If Senator Oshiomhole had read that book, he will have found where in that book that Professor Nwosu wrote that, in fact, Abiola won the election decisively. Right. And that his victory was endorsed by both political parties at the collation center before the annulment. That is clear enough. But you know what they say. If you don't want a black man to see anything, just hide it in the book. But
well, again, Ruben Abati has already said it that Oshiomhole probably doesn't read.
That book is still available. Hopefully, some people will go and read it. Now, Senator Adiola was making the point. He said he was not making a partisan statement. He was talking from a personal angle that he lost his brother. Indeed, there were many people that died during that struggle. Nobody could say that it was Professor Nwosu that personally carried guns to kill people. It was the military junta. And Babangida, as head of state at that time, I said that it was Abacha-led forces that stopped the announcement of the results. Now, he, the general, he that had the box stopping at his table, he as president and head of state of Nigeria, he ran away from the junta. He could not assert himself.
Yeah.
Is it Professor Nwosu that was just appointed as a INEC chairman that will now stand up to the Abacha-led forces?
Yes.
No, it's not possible. And then finally, what are the prayers of Senator Naya Baribe and the others? They are saying he laid the foundation of the headquarters of INEC and he has started building it. they say, okay, the minimum that the government can do is to name that INEC headquarters after him. Professor Yakubu Mahmoud, who was speaking at service of songs in his honor this same week, also made such a recommendation and said that Nwosu was a trailblazer and many lessons could be learned from the foundation that he has laid. Now he took over from Professor Emeawa. That in itself, can they take it away from him that he laid the foundation of that INEC headquarters that everybody else is using today? Number two, about national honor. Even if they don't want to give him national honor, they should realize, those who are opposing Nwosu and saying he cannot be immortalized, should realize that many of the people who urinated on the legacy of June 12, they have been given national honors. Yes. Including Ambassador Babagana Kingibe, who was running mate to Abiola. He has been given GCON. And yet he was one of the first to jump ship and abandon the June 12 struggle. Many other persons who have been governors, who have been given national honors, these were people who betrayed June 12. People who betrayed Chief MKO Abiola, they've been given national honors. Even his achievement as a scholar, Professor Humphrey Nwosu as a distinguished scholar, even that qualifies him more to be on the national honors list than all the undeserved, funny people that always show up on the national honors list every year. And that's why I think that they have a good case. Those Abaribe team and supporters, they have a good case. Although some people have been saying there was cowardice. There was Newswatch wrote 2 editorials in 1993 abusing Professor Nwosu. Please, how many families will allow their children to go and face bullets because of Nigeria, and you say that is cowardice? He was working under the military.
Under the military. You said it very correctly, Dr. Abati. I'd like your thoughts, Ayo, about the senator representing Ogun West, Adiola, who said that, Humphrey Nwosu failed to deliver Nigeria's democracy and that his brother died during the whole annulment period.
Adiola, on the loss of his brother. And in this.
Anyway, I think Ayo, obviously, at this point, will do a very good, analysis on this. I'll come back to that. But before I do, just to show that not everybody is happy with it. In one of the interviews by News Central, Bashorun Dele Momodu had the following to say.
I am quite embarrassed about the present Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And I can see that a lot of people, maybe they were too young and so do not have that sense of history. But the truth is that Professor Humphrey Nwosu did the job requested of him, and he did it creditably well.
Wow.
It was not his duty to annul or not to annul. It was to organize an election, and that election was adjudged the best, the fairest in the history of Nigeria. So I wonder what exactly these senators who are opposing him being, honored, I wonder what they want him to do or what he could have done that I did not do.
Didn't do. Yeah.
The reason why everybody is talking about June 12 today and saying that Abiola won was because there was an election in the first instance. So, but I see a lot of ignorance flying around the Senate. The same people criticizing Professor Humphrey Nwosu, he did not do this, he did not declare the results, he did not do that. There are people who cannot even hold government accountable today.
Yes.
They are asking Nwosu to do what he could not have done. And this was under a military regime. In a civilian regime, we have these people who are talking here. All rubber stamping. Anything Tinubu says, they will rubber stamp it. The same people have the effrontery to criticize someone who did his job very well. It's all I guess.
Right? Rubber stampers are criticizing to say why. But also, before I come back to Ayo, there is this take from the senator representing Anambra North, distinguished Senator Tony Nwosu. Have a listen and on regarding
facts. It's very disappointing that some of us should be sorting facts just because Professor Humphrey Nwosu is an Igbo man. Was it Justice Professor Humphrey Nwosu that made a military cabal to throw Nigeria into confusion? It is highly unfair, despite the pressure from Babangida government, despite the court order, Mr. President, allow me, despite the court order by Justice Ibeme that stopped the election, despite all the threats from the military cabal, the man still went ahead to conduct the freest and fairest election. Our personal biases, our personal sentiments, and our party affiliations to influence what we are doing here. So far I'm concerned, during the June 12 presidential election, I was a presiding officer. And yes, I just came out from secondary school. I was the presiding officer in that election. That election has been adjudged up to today the freest and fairest election in the history of Nigeria. Mr. President, any Nigerian that googles internet, which election is the freest and fairest election in Nigeria, is the June 12th presidential election. Professor Humphrey Nwosu, a professor of political science from the prestigious University of Nigeria, a civil servant, before he was appointed in 1989, did his best, despite the pressure from Babangida government, despite the court order, Mr. President, allow me, despite the court order by Justice Ibeme that stopped the election, despite all the threats from the military cabal, the man still went ahead to conduct the freest and fairest election. Was it Professor Humphrey Nwosu that made Justice Saleh from Katangum Emirate from Bauchi to annul the election? Was it Justice Professor Humphrey Nwosu that made the military cabal to throw Nigeria into confusion? It is highly unfair. One of my colleagues mentioned about the honor.
How was it going to remain my brother?
Is it because he belongs to a particular political party? Let us not distort facts. It's very disappointing that some of us should be sorting facts just because Professor Humphrey Nwosu is an Igbo man.
Okay, let's stop at this point. And that is, you can see where this is now going, because some are now feeling, is it because he is from the southeast? That's why people are now putting logic upside down. Because the worst is that when I listen to the words of Adam Soshomole, I mean, I can forgive every other person, but his was a blatant lie. And whenever I hear, I don't know why, I appear to be bothered anytime I hear in the public space and the public discussion, those that ought to know, those that actually know, begin to twist fact. Suddenly my mind goes into, into the misinformation that led to the Civil War of 1966, right? How the January 15 coup was, the whole thing was misinformed to a point that people began to believe that what the gentlemen that in their wisdom conducted those coups no longer wasn't the reason why they did what they did. So let's come back to to OG and Tim again in the studio. Then we'll take from Ayo now.
Same vein, I sympathize with all Nigerians who lost people, lost property, lost dignity, lost time during that period. But the fact that we're even having a conversation around whether or not Professor Nwosu deserves this honor is a big problem in itself. And I'll give reasons for that. The first thing is that we will not be talking about June 12 elections and the repercussions if we didn't have a man who was bold enough and brave enough in the face of military pressure to conduct what is said to be the freest and fairest election, one we've not seen in over 30 years since then. That in itself, he deserves accolades for that. We all know what happened during the Babangida years, during the Abacha years, and it must have taken a lot of courage for him to have done that. It is difficult to work alone when you're standing up for the right things. And so when you have people around you who are not willing to support you, yet you were still able to go ahead to conduct that election, that man ought to be celebrated. On the other side of things, isn't it ironic that the person whom the buck stopped with had a book launch the other day, and people who were even victims of June 12 elections and the repercussions were there to raise 16 billion naira for him, almost change the course of history, rewrite history, and we're talking about him in glowing terms. He wants to build a presidential library, and people are supporting him. That's very man deserves accolades, but the one who was bold enough to conduct the first and fairest election does not deserve the honor that we're asking for. It doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely.
And so that's why, what is the persuasion for Nigerians to do right? What is the persuasion for Nigerians to lay down their lives? And that's why I asked the question, is Nigeria worth dying for? Because when you you risk your life and all these things, they say no. But when you run away, at least the only thing, just make sure you survive. And
come back and write your own story.
The more you live, the more history will be, will tilt in your favor. Finally, this is why the importance of teaching history in schools is important.
Absolutely.
The Southeast senators, one of the things they must also do, must make sure that history is not rewritten to make Professor Humphrey, let them tell the side of the story so that Nigerian children today and tomorrow will read the real story of what happened during June 12 elections and the real heroes of that time.
Well said, both of you. Well said.
And that's why we are also not relenting from here, that we will never again allow such blatant lie go without being challenged. I wasn't born in 1966. Probably those who were alive then probably didn't challenge this nonsense enough that it began to stay and be stuck, that today people will come back and tell you that 1966 coup was an Igbo coup, but the January 1966 coup was an Igbo coup, but the revenge coup in their perception of July 1966 wasn't a northern coup. Haba planned, killed people from one ethnic region, yet that wasn't a northern coup. If we want to stick with the nomenclature of military coup, then 66 January is a military coup, 66 July is a military coup. So, we stay with that line of argument. Now, before I bring in Professor Humphrey Nwosu late now to speak, in that interview he gave with Omoyele Sowore, let me also bring this brilliant submission for your attention.
Praises for the man who annulled the June 12 election that stopped Abiola from becoming president. And Nigeria's hypocrisy could never more be on display, as we saw in that particular event, some of which we on our own part condemned the adulation, the praises, to a very large extent the groveling at what we believed, was a rigging of one of the most momentous time of our history, where we would have had a democratically elected president, in 1994. Now, what worries me is that every one of them acknowledges and agrees that that was the freest election ever conducted in Nigeria's history. Every one of them agrees. In fact, every political historian in Nigeria agrees that that was the freest election, conducted in the history of this country. Now, why have we suddenly decided to blackmail or blacklist the person who conducted the first election despite pressure from military dictators, but sort of acknowledge and appreciate the person who annulled the election? It's a complete mystery to me, because many have argued that Humphrey Nwosu should have done the magical, and I'm here laughing because if you read his book, which he published in 2008, if I remember, his story about the June 12 elections, you will see the accounts where, in fact, many don't even know that they made public the election results that proved that Abiola won the election, and all of those documents were published in a court of appeal in Abuja.
Yeah.
So in fact, the results were already public documents, as far back as then, that you could prove that Abiola had won the elections. And people forget that he was relieved of his duties as chairperson of INEC and could not unilaterally go and declare anybody president. His job was to conduct a free and fair election.
And he did.
He delivered on, but could not announce the results of that election. One, because there was an injunction, because everybody knows a court order was gotten, and the commissioner had issued that on him not to announce those results. Secondly, because he was also removed as chairman of that body, and of course, he was restrained from further announcing results. So to sort of pretend, right, or to sort of posture that he was some sort of villain in this entire June 12 event, betrays, historical knowledge.
Anyway, thank you very much for that. Now, again, I must have to replay this because this is the one that ails me. When I watch this, it really got under my skin. Watch once more.
But when it comes to facts, the written word, if we go into history, I want to be on record as saying the following. Paragraph 3 of this document, this motion, which says, quote, conscious of his courageous defense of the democratic electoral process during the 1993 presidential election that led to the famous June 12 slogan, which ultimately confirmed MKO Abiola as the winner of the election. This is manipulating and wrestling with the truth. June 12 became famous because Nigerians who voted and the elections results already announced, people were at liberty to do their calculation.
You see, when adults begins to put logic upside down, it appears they are now beginning to reason from the orifice. He said the results so far announced by who? Election conducted by who? You agree that the election was free and fair. You agree that the election was free and fair. Conducted by Professor Humphrey Nwosu late. The same man you said had done nothing. That you argue that people already had the results and people could work on the results. Yet, you do not want to acknowledge the man who availed people same result. Logic. There are some times that you think, where is the common sense of logic?
But because the chief electoral officer failed to formally announce the figures and declare the winner, the Nigerian people on their own talk about, if you look at the media review, the man who is widely believed to have won the election, because the man who should have announced it failed to do so.
Man, before I break my television and my things in the studio, you need to go. Because what at this point he's talking is nothing but arrant nonsense. The man you accuse of not, if you've been removed, if you are removed as the NEC chairman, then it wasn't INEC, it was NEC. If you've been removed as NEC chairman, which result were you then going to announce? You no longer possess the authority. Imagine in the last election, assuming Buhari at some point before, when the results started coming in, we had, I think, about 8 states and eventually went on a long break. Assuming at that time of long break that Buhari removed Professor Mahmoud. Mahmoud comes back. He has lost the authority to go further and make any announcement because he's no longer the head of INEC. Sometimes I think these men who sit down there, it's something wrong that the logic is taking flight from their brains. Sorry, but it beats me. Now, Thank you, Omoyele Sowore, who in 2001 recorded this interview. You know, in Sowore's usual way of trying to be confrontational, but you can see how calm the professor responded. And there and then told Sowore, if you're interested in the details, after this meeting here, I will sit down with you and grant you an interview. The interview, the second part of the interview, happened the same day. Pay attention to the clothes worn by the professor, even the clothes worn by Omoyele Sowore. Listen to the way Sowore presented this argument 14 years ago. Sowore, kudos to you.
Very good question to you that today is almost 21 years after June 12 election that you umpired. And you are making the declaration for the first time that I'm hearing that Abiola won Monday.
I should have made it in my book.
Yes, but when Abiola was arrested, jailed, you were nowhere to be found. The last statement you made was that the election was inconclusive before you disappeared, before you came out and wrote that your book. Wouldn't you have done Nigeria a great job of courage if you are stuck by the position that Abiola won the election and on that basis disgraced people like Babangida and the other people that you don't want to mention who made it impossible for Nigeria to have democracy for almost 10 years after that? Prof, don't you think you disappointed your nation?
Just a minute, sir. Can we have a couple of questions so it doesn't get so polarized?
I think it's very important.
Yeah, it is.
I need to clear my name. Instead, as a reformer, reform it as I chicken down when the matter.
And honestly, even when the guy that was moderating wanted more people to ask questions, it meant that Professor Enugu Nwosu was clued on. He understood that history beckoned for him to clear his name, and he made it very clear.
I didn't chicken out. I carry my message back to Nigeria. Carrying, and I had never hesitated, and I will give an interview. You say if you can, after this lecture, I can give it here. You carry it back to Nigeria.
And he there and then he said to Omoyele Sowore, I can give you interview. That means I can grant you interview here and now in this hall the moment we finish. And he lived up to that because he had nothing to hide. He just wants everyone to know. He has written it in books. This interview is nothing but gold. Omoyele Sowore, I can't thank you enough.
Before I left Nigeria, I gave to AIT, I gave to this day, and they repeat the same thing. Sometimes people don't take in the correct answer. Without this man standing here, they wouldn't have been June 12 election.
Did you hear that? In 2011, he made bold to say, without this man, Professor Humphrey Nwosu, standing before you, there wouldn't have been June 12. Listen to that again.
If I tell you what I did to make sure that that election took place, it is in this book. Sometimes people don't take in the correct answer. Without this man standing here, there wouldn't have been June 12 election.
Without this man standing here, there wouldn't have been the June 12 election. And that's why I am really, really pissed that people like Adams Oshomole, either that he is ignorant of the fact, but I doubt because Adams knows one or two things. I am only trying to place my hand why Adams is behaving in this way. I cannot, I mean, in 1999, I was already a staff member of NTA, Victoria Island headquarters, right? A staff member of NTA. Then we witnessed all the time, we witnessed strike. And every time the hopes of Nigerians under Adams Oshomole as the Labour leader will be raised, they will go strike deal. And suddenly everything will be dashed again. But hey, Professor, let's hear your last part before we get to the second part.
If I tell you what I did to make sure that that election took place, it is in this book. Sometimes people don't read. People think of money in Nigeria. People should not think of theory, things that will work and make our system stable and perform for our people. Let me tell you, first and foremost, the military was divided before June 12th election was conducted. It's a given fact. If you read forward to my book, Colonel Abubakar Omar, you will know, used to be governor of Kaduna State. He resigned his commission, he believed firmly in Abiola. And he affirmed everything in this book. Please get a copy. You look at it, annulment. Don't read any other thing. Go straight to annulment. What happened? Let me tell you, the military was divided. Abacha was friend of Babangida. I'm saying it publicly at international level. At some stage, Abacha wanted to have a stint as president of Nigeria. When Babangida wanted to be a hero, that he handed over a reform system that he will be remembered by posterity and the international community. Because observers, he allowed observers all over the world to witness the election. But the only thing which he owed to Abacha, there was a coup of April 1990, which Abacha helped to save his neck. So Abacha wanted to rule. He didn't want the election to go ahead. Now, this is that book. What happened? To make the election not to go ahead, everything was done to condemn the emergence of Abiola as a legitimate candidate of Social Democratic Party. Everything was done. I supervised, my commission supervised the emergence of Abiola in Jos. But I stood firmly that he emerged according to the rule. When this didn't work, there was a court ruling. Were you aware of that? Yes. June 10, 1993.
I was president of the Student Electoral Union in 1993.
Listen to me. June 10, 1993. In the night, a court gave decision that the election should not go on June 12th. That I am banned not to conduct the election. Meanwhile, all my colleagues, national commissioners, have gone into the field to supervise the election. What could I do? I was alone. What I did, I decided to attend when I learned that there was a meeting of the highest ruling organ, National Defense and Security Council, in Aso Rock on June 11th. The election was to take place June 12th. I wasn't invited. I just said that the meeting was going on. They didn't want, pro-Abacha group didn't want me there in the meeting. How would they hold meeting whether the election will take place or not when the chief electoral officer of the country was not invited? In any case, when I heard of it, I took a risk and invited myself to a gathering of military people. Is it done in Nigeria? I don't know who will do it. I went to that meeting, and that's why without Babangida, the election wouldn't have taken place. What happened? In the meeting there, they asked me, why are you here? I said, I'm here because the election will take place. Court has given a decision that there should be no election. And this is not, cannot be, because election is tomorrow. Court cannot give a decision 2 days, just 1.5 days to election, that there will be no election. And there were observers all over the world in Nigeria. And in any case, the law that empowered us to conduct election had stated that once a date and time have been fixed for general election in Nigeria, no court can stop us. But after the election, if the election was not held according in keeping with the law, it would be nullified. So that was the position of law. I quoted to the president and his colleagues that the election must take place, and I'm ready. Unless you don't want the election to go on, tell me, then I know what to tell Nigerians. They are looking upon me, and they know about the rules of the election. And you have assured me you give me a free hand. Are you getting the message? You see, because I don't have time to conclude on, you said you give me a free hand. The election should hold tomorrow. If you don't want it to hold, tell me what I will tell Nigerians. Abacha stood up. He was to go. There was something they passed around in that meeting. Something which Director of Information from U.S. Embassy circulated that if that election was postponed, it would be unacceptable to the United States. Because the United States was aware of what was going on. So Abacha and group said, oh, postpone it for 1 week. Postpone it. Postpone it. America cannot dictate to us. And I raised my hand. The president, I'm telling you what happened. Those who didn't know about June 12 are talking. I ran, vanished. So the president said, have you heard anything? I said, sir, this election must go ahead. This information, this relief from American embassy has nothing to do with election which will conduct tomorrow. It has nothing to do with that. And if we postpone it for 1 week, it will be the worst rigged election in Nigerian history. You postpone it for 3 months, we will print another set of ballot papers, another set of arrangements. Everywhere was silent. This is that book. So when they looked, there was Shonika was there. He's still there. I'm mentioning them. The present president of Nigerian Senate was there. And the host of others. They said, okay, Babangida said, do you think Nigerians will come out tomorrow to vote? And that's when the military will sometime, they can be decisive. Babangida alone took that decision, said, go ahead. Go and hold international press conference in their commission. This man was there, Onu, who was Secretary for Information. He should tell the director with 48 hours to leave Nigeria. Monitor should go around and monitor.
Anyway, now, like I said before, thank you, Omoyele Sowore, for providing us this gold. This is indeed digital media gold. Now, listening to the man, I sit down here and I have goosebumps. The man had uncommon courage. Uninvited, where the Supreme Military Council were having their meeting, he barged in. You know what I mean? You know, I don't know, maybe if you're too young to know when military governed and ruled Nigeria, you may begin to appreciate why the military beat police up in this country. These guys were gun smokers, metaphorically speaking. And this professor, when he heard that they were having the meeting, even with a court order, he went to say that no, this court order wasn't going to work, that he was going to go ahead with that election. Listening to that, I mean, come on. And someone will come and say that he didn't do the right thing. Now, there is, you know, he promised Omoyele Sowore that he would have a proper interview with him. This part is that interview that he promised Omoyele Sowore proper. Here, he now made it categorically clear as to his thought processes and what drove him in making those decisions that he did.
But the question that remained unanswered was the circumstances under which you left the stage in 1993. The last word we heard from you until you wrote a book was that this election is inconclusive. and the Professor Nwosu that everybody knows to be erudite and very charismatic, and had laid down a very powerful political process, disappeared from public view. What happened to you after the election on June 12, 1993?
I didn't disappear. Part of the problem was that of the media too. Let me explain the process. From June 16, 1993. Remember, we were promised that if that election was conducted to be free and fair, accepted by international observers and local observers, that we would be given national honors. So my colleagues were also working hard as Nigerians. So when, according to our efforts, you knew all the problems, all the restrictions, in spite of all that, June 12 came. The election was conducted, it was peaceful, materials were distributed all over Nigeria, promptly in all difficult terrain because of arrangement and logistic preparation we put in place. So when the results started coming in, June 13, 14, in fact it was to be concluded around June 17, 18. The other party, NRC, had even congratulated SDP for winning. You know, suddenly there was a letter served on me by Commissioner of Police that we should cease forthwith in releasing the result. I summoned on June 16 emergency meeting of the commission. All the results had come in with the exception of that of Taraba, which the resident electoral commissioner from Delta, Professor Sada, was on his way to bring. We would have released the result about June 17. So they said, stop. I was served. In fact, I was called in a meeting of National Defense and Security Council and said, would you release this result without knowing? I said, that's the law. There was no provision of the highest ruling military body to vet the result. The law says that the result should be announced at each level. The polling station level, ward headquarters, local government, state, and finally, their conclusion at headquarters. In fact, almost every person, owing to the communication system we put in place, could even collate to know that Abiola had won. Now, with that, my commission met and we decided that we would challenge that ruling by court, Abuja High Court, because it's Commissioner of Police that served it. And when the next step was I was summoned at the level of the National Defense Security and Defense Council.
Headed by Babangida?
Babangida and Abacha was prominent. They said, okay, that a committee headed by Abacha should find a solution to the problem. I said, how do we find a problem? We should be allowed to conclude what we started. They said, Abacha. In that committee, I'm quoting names. Abacha was in it. Nyako. Nyako was in it. General Aliyu Gusso was in it. David Mark was in it. Was the Minister of Communication. I was in it. Secretary of the Commission, Director of Legal Services was in it. Professor Deria, National Commissioner representing Rivers State. We met in Abacha. When we met in Abacha's house, guest house in Abuja, he set another subcommittee, including myself, Akpambo, late now, Akilu, the secretary of the commission, I think one other advisor-in-law in the State House. When we got at that subcommittee level, I told them, gentlemen, there is nothing for us to meet. The law is clear. Elections have been conducted. Results have been collected. The only one remaining is that of Taraba, and he had come along with it. Please allow us to conclude. We are a technical body. We are not politicians. In any case, if you don't want us to release the result, you should call Abiola and Tofa, or negotiate with Abiola that Abiola was the winner. Well, you know, military, the military personnel in it were afraid. They said, okay, you report, you are the chairman of the commission. We went back to Abacha's guest house, and I reported, well, sir, the law that allowed us to conclude this election made no provision for this technical body, for your committee. You should allow us to conclude the result with that of Taraba and announce it, or you call in Abiola and negotiate with him. He shouted on me, who are you to tell us what to do? You are not a member of National Defense and Security Council. You are not. The council and the court decided you should not conduct the election. You went ahead and conducted the election, that it was illegal. You will recall throughout.
I think at this part, Oshomolo needs to hear this. Because if Adams Oshomolo is blaming him to be a coward, Oshomolo needs to know that even when the court told him not to conduct that election, he defied that court and conducted that election. This was said, he granted this interview in 2001. 2001. That's 14 years ago.
Abacha's regime, his Minister for Information regarded our election as illegal. He said, well, you are not a member. Go to Aso Rock, where all of us will now take a decision. What will happen? Call all your national commissioners. That was, it's a military regime. So, because many people didn't know what, so I was to call my secretary to invite all my national commissioners to come to Aso Rock. It was David Mark. He was then the Minister of Communication, who used mobile. That's when the mobile was starting. He called myself Andrew Mana. I'm mentioning them. You all wanted at Aso Rock. We went there. Here was a full meeting.
Which date was that?
Was around 18
of
yes, all this 18 June. When we got there, Babangida said, NEC, National Electoral Commission, what is your position on this election? I answered, I was the boss, leadership of NEC stops with me. I said, sir, allow us just 2 minutes so that it will not be Humphrey Nwosu's decision. It will be that of National Electoral Commission. He said, okay, 2 minutes. We went to one of the rooms. He said, gentlemen, ladies and Eruku was a Lady National Commission. We don't have anything to do with politics of this. They should.
Anyway, the story has it that they do not have anything to do with this. And finally, that they should go ahead and announce the result, and so was it done. Now, for someone to eventually come back to say that this was quite beats the imagination, right? It quite beats imagination. Anyway, that's the much I can take on this particular issue. Then that would now take us to the second part of this conversation, which is the one that happened in Delta State, where the nursing student in Delta sang a song that became something of grave interest to certain individuals, right? It became something of interest. Now, if we go back to that, we will find out that initially the school issued a query to that student. You know, it is always good to speak up. Many people, myself included, and again, thanks to Sore, who mobilized some of the take it back movement in Delta State, and they visited the young woman in question. And after much pressure, the school, understanding that if care is not taken, if they do not do the right thing, the youth were likely to revolt. Again, for those who don't know the song, enjoy it.
We not get another one. Now your mama believe so. Only me to know. Now your mama believe so.
So now your mama be this. As a reader.
I said, if Ahmed Bola Tinubu fails, hold me responsible. You say? I say, if Tinubu fails, hold me responsible.
So that is Asari Dokuboda. But because the confusion that is everywhere, it's everywhere on the roads, on the street.
5 days, it is a road. I know go back, I know go plan. I know Giri make you go back. I know Giri make you come. The road you don't spoil. The people ask, I know Giri make you open the road. While I too much, no back, no foot, nothing. Go.
Nothing we go do. The road, it don't spoil finish. Even the former president, he tell us we go from tough.
ABC Nigeria from top to bottom.
So Nigeria from top to bottom. Now let's come back here. On as that happened, many of us intervened. I did an opinion piece actually, which I think it was published by Injinja Media and also by Sahara Reporters. Let me quickly see if I can bring in Sahara Reporters in here. My opinion piece. I'll just take an excerpt here. Okay, that's my opinion piece that was published by Sahara Reporters in the early hours of today, and that here, I titled it "The Power of the People: A Victory Against Government Overreach in Delta State." That's when immediately the the states somewhat got to understand that the people actually have power. Now, and I like the part that Sahara Reporters actually highlighted here from my piece, where they said, "Nos Osatos supposed crime." That's the question that I posed. And I asked, participating in a song titled "Na Your Mama Be This," which the Delta State government and college authorities deemed offensive to Senator Remi Tinubu, the wife of the president, Bola Tinubu, during her visit to the institution on March 27, 2025. For this, the college sought to penalize her, threatening disciplinary action for what was little more than an expression of free speech. The heavy-handed response from the authorities was also just an attack on Osato. It was an assault on the fundamental right of every Nigerian to speak, create, and challenge the powerful without fear of retribution. Now, I can share this. I can share this on in the comment section, or you can go to Arise TV. You can go to Sahara, or you can go to Njenje Media, for instance. Here, that is the same publication here. That is the nurse, the young lady who shared this video, and they wanted to penalize her. And so many Nigerians actually began to say, no, 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 that shouldn't happen. And I thank goodness that it didn't. So I think the lady on your right is a Nollywood actor who also went to see, to see her. Now, look at the letter written by the Delta State College of Nursing Sciences, Agbo, Delta State. And it says here, Nurse Osato Edebo, Delta State College of Nursing Sciences, Agbo, Delta State. That was yesterday. Query for divulging unauthorized online publication, video, social media, TikTok, Facebook, etc. It has come to our notice. It has come to the notice of the school authority that you, student Osato Edebo, on the 25th of March 2025, during official visit of the First Lady of Nigeria, Senator Oreremi Tinubu, CON, at the Dome Event Center, Asaba, for the Renewed Hope Initiative Health Program and distribution of 10,000 professional kits to midwife in each geopolitical zone of Nigeria, South Zone, was found to be engaged in malicious act of recording and posting an official response to a song. Sorry. At some point, I'm beginning to laugh. You can say unofficial response of a song during the arrival of First Lady, found on your TikTok page. This is a punishable offense, as enshrined in the student handbook under standardized disciplinary action for some punishable offense number 8, page 21. I think at this point they should have actually put that in. Everybody could go buy that book, read them. But anyway, the point is that once they did this, a lot of Nigerians began, people really spoke out against this. And once then, they now have to do the following. The Honorable Commissioner for Health, Dr. Joseph Ono Jeme, in his magnanimity, has directed the school authority to withdraw the query issued to on the 27th, 2025. You are therefore return the query letter through the Student Affairs Office to the Office of the Provost. The school authority regrets any inconvenience this must have caused the state. It's fine. Now, the question is, if not that everyone lend their voice, I bet you the school wouldn't have taken this back. The school wouldn't have taken this back. There is no way they would have. Because that's something all of us know. They wouldn't have taken it back. But hey, in this one, we forced them collectively. As a people, we forced them to do the right thing, to take it back. Take it back, by all means. Finally, here, we say victory to those who showed concern and victory to the students. She has the right to feel however she wants to feel, and she has the right. Also, she has the right to post whatever she wants to post. She did not violate anything. She didn't violate anything. Then many of you who have, across the nation, especially those of you from the Southeast, I'm going to leave us with this. Enugu Air. Recall that when Pitamba came to office, he In one of the promises he made was that he was going to set up an airline for Enugu State, that it was going to be a government and private sector initiative. Many people thought it was a joke, but today videos have emerged. Thank you, Friday. Anyone who subscribed while we are live will give you a round of applause. Thank you, Friday, for your subscription. And those of you who are watching us, please like, share. Double applause, double buzzer for you, please. Like and share. Friday, thank you for your subscription. So, like I was saying, when we now look at these Enugu Air, as it is called, quite different from the Nigerian Air. Nigerian Air was that we did not see any airline. We did not see any F office. Neither did we see any aircraft. The day we saw aircraft, it was an Ethiopian aircraft borrowed from one of these, I think, was it Tanzania? No, not Tanzania. What's this small African country? Borrowed from there, came to Nigeria, repented, and some of the paint were still dripping as of that time. But Enugu is a thing of reality. Watch that. Enugu Air, right? But one thing that is still not yet clear is the destinations that they will be flying. So we don't know yet what destination. Are they flying? For now, you should know that they are only going to be doing local routes. That's going to be maybe Enugu to Lagos, Enugu to Abuja, Enugu to, I don't know if there is any need for Kaduna, Sokoto, or any other way. But I think the most recreative route that they will be doing is Enugu, Lagos, and Enugu, Abuja. Eventually, probably with the right licenses, they should be looking at expanding to other recreative African countries. Over time, once the Enugu International Airport Terminal is completed, hopefully we should be expecting this to fly Enugu, London Heathrow, Enugu, Frankfurt, Enugu, Washington DC, Enugu, Guangzhou, China, Enugu, Singapore, and Enugu. I don't know. The dream is we can play with the mind. It could be Enugu, Ankara. It could be Enugu to wherever. It could be Enugu to Malaysia. It could be Enugu to Dubai. As long as they provide first-class service and make it something that is affordable, of course. The rest assured that as long as they're going to fly from London, New York, Frankfurt into Enugu, they are going to have us on board. I honestly look forward to them flying, and I promise you, I will be doing my review of the airline. I will show you what I think, and I will tell you again what I, obviously, what could be. We will see what the outcome will be. On this note, I say thank you very much for being part of my Friday hangout. It's been lovely having you all here. I am still Mazes, okay? Good night and bye from here. Again, no be my mama. If not your mama, good
We not get another one. Now your mama believe so. Only me to know. Now your mama believe so. Now our mama believe so. We not get another one. Now your mama believe so. Now our mama believe so. We not get another one. Now your mama believe so. Now I'm to know.